Writer Chris Kaliza of the Washington Post attempted to discredit Bernie Sanders because of his unwillingness to talk about foreign policy issues. He explains that Bernie Sanders only dedicated one sentence to the terrorist attack in Paris at the last debate, then, quote, launched into a 123-word riff on the necessity to address climate change, economic inequality, and campaign finance reform. That moment was a glimpse into the serious limitations that Sanders has as a candidate. Right, because you wouldn't want to focus on the issues that actually impact more people, such as climate change. I mean, that only impacts 7 billion people, right? So we might as well put that on the back burner and talk about other types of issues. That doesn't make any sense. So, anyways, he continues, Sanders is, sorry Sanders people, surprisingly one-dimensional as a candidate. When he is talking about the differences between the haves and the have-nots, about the need for more economic fairness, why we need to reform the campaign finance system or work to address global warming, he is terrific. When he is talking about anything else, he is, not. Now, to anyone who literally writes and puts the word in a written sentence, you know that they're trying to be condescending. So this is clearly condescension, especially the fact that he had to include the, sorry, Sanders people, don't want to offend your little fickle, feeble brains. It's just condescending, and I really take issue with the overall tone of the article, as well as the actual argument that he poses. Now, I agree that as a presidential candidate, you can't be one-dimensional and only focus on a select number of issues, but Bernie Sanders is not one-dimensional. He focuses on all types of issues. Now, he does emphasize economic issues, but he's right to do that because those are issues, one, that impact Americans more than terrorism. That's right. There are some issues more important than terrorism. And furthermore, those are the issues that the American people cares about. Now, furthermore, Bernie Sanders has the most comprehensive and rational strategy of all the candidates. He wants to form a coalition to degrade and defeat ISIS. He doesn't want the U.S. to just go at it alone. Now, this is a more reasonable policy than Hillary Clinton because what does she want to do? She wants to directly, or she actually alluded to the fact that she wants troops on the ground, or boots on the ground, as everybody is saying, and she also wants to institute a no-fly zone in Syria, which could potentially escalate us into World War III with Russia. So Bernie Sanders is the one candidate out of all of them in both fields that has an actual sane policy, but let's not talk about that. The fact that he doesn't emphasize that, well, that's not enough for this guy. Now, furthermore, I agree that with some of what he writes. So, for example, when he says that Sanders is without question closer to the true heart of the Democratic Party than Clinton on a vast majority of domestic issues, that's absolutely true. But then he goes on to say, external events changed the conversation in the race, and he has been unwilling or unable to change with it. Talking about economic inequality in the midst of a national debate about gun control and national security won't lose Sanders the ardent supporters he already has, but it will badly hamstring his ability to grow beyond the supporters he already has in what is essentially a one-on-one race with Clinton at the moment. For Democrats looking for a candidate who can stand up to the almost inevitable Republican charge that the party of Obama is both unaware of the full scope of the fight against terror and unwilling to do what it takes to win that conflict, Sanders has done virtually nothing to convince people he can be that guy. I disagree. Bernie Sanders talks about gun violence. He talks about terrorism. He has made the case of what he wants to do. But again, he's emphasizing on the issues that matter. So he continues, quote, Sanders has shown little ability or inclination to grow beyond his pet issue set. And as a result, his campaign's challenge to Clinton has stalled. Now that right there is the crux of Kaliza's argument. And it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. Now, the fact that he's focusing on, quote, pet issues is not a problem for Bernie Sanders, as these are the issues that most Americans want to hear about. But the reason why his challenge to Clinton has stalled is because the media is not giving him enough coverage. They're not giving him the attention he deserves. Donald Trump, who has an equal amount of support in the Republican Party as Bernie Sanders has in the Democratic Party, has 23 times the coverage of Bernie Sanders. So Bernie Sanders' message can't catch on if people don't know about him. So the fact that he is, quote, one-dimensional, as he's not, but the fact that you think he's one-dimensional is not the reason why his campaign has stalled in terms of challenging Clinton. Now, in fact, polls show that many Democratic voters still don't even know who Bernie Sanders is, and this is especially true when it comes to ethnic and racial minority voters. Now, my argument that the media is inhibiting the full reach of Bernie Sanders' campaign is not fueled by my own speculation. It's actually contingent on political science research, namely by Iyengar and Kinder, who state that the media are so powerful, they have the ability to either legitimize a campaign of someone like a buffoon like Donald Trump, or they can effectively kill off a candidate's campaign by just not covering them. And that's what we've seen. We've seen a media blackout for Bernie Sanders, and because of it, it's made his campaign very difficult in terms of reaching more people. But his message is so strong, so one-dimensional, as you put it, that in spite of the media blackout, he's been able to do a really great job and thrive nonetheless. Now, to be fair, Kaliza updated his article with this tweet. He states, Sanders press secretary Simone Sanders tells reporters before his press conference, don't ask about ISIS today. Yeah, okay. Now look, sure, I agree with the fact that a presidential candidate should be ready to deal with any and everything, but Bernie Sanders has to rein in the media. Otherwise, they'll only focus on sensational issues, and economic issues will never be covered. So if you just don't try to impose any controls on what you want to talk about, if you don't control dialogue, if you don't control the political message, we're going to be talking about terrorism 24/7. Hence the reason why the Republican debate was 9/10 terrorism. That's it. But that's not the number one issue that impacts voters. That's just not. I'm sorry, but we have to accept that. So by refocusing the media's attention to issues that have a real world impact on most people, he's right to do that, and that's why he's so popular in spite of the media blackout. Now again, his ability to refocus media attention and not attack Clinton are the reasons why people like him, because he's genuine and he's actually speaking to something that doesn't get discussed. Now to say that his campaign is stalling because he's one-dimensional, which he's not, again, and because he only focuses on these pet set of issues, well, that's just not correct. The media doesn't like Bernie Sanders. If it were the case that the media actually wasn't biased against Bernie Sanders, his campaign would be leagues ahead of Hillary Clinton, because more people agree with Bernie Sanders than any other candidate in the entire presidential field. I've gone over this before, where I actually compare Bernie Sanders' policy positions to public opinion polls, and almost every single one of his policies has majority support. So this is just an attempt to discredit Bernie Sanders and paint him as a candidate who's not serious because he's one-dimensional. Well, no, that's not the case. In fact, he's the most diverse candidate of all of them, because he talks about a broad range of issues. On the entire Republican field, all they talk about is Islamic terrorism, when that's not the biggest threat to America. But you don't see this guy critiquing them. You don't see them calling out the Republicans for being one-dimensional, right? No, only Bernie Sanders. When we talk about Hillary Clinton, she is trying to parrot everything that Bernie Sanders talks about. If Bernie Sanders talks about something, she'll talk about something. Now, is Hillary Clinton one-dimensional as well, because she talks about the same issues that Bernie Sanders talks about? No, it's because his campaign is galvanizing the public, and she's trying to emulate his success, even though he has a smaller reach than Hillary Clinton. So I completely disagree with this article, and the fact that they try to discredit him like this, it's inherently misleading, and it's not representative of reality. The real reason is that Bernie Sanders he's facing an uphill battle due to media bias, not because he's one-dimensional. I think he's the best candidate we've had in a generation.